You have restored the altar. May you stride forward with an understanding of the power you wield. Your magic will leave marks on this world. Whether they be scars or fingerprints remains to be seen.
Okay. What do you mean by that? Hey guys, Centurion here with my friend Zirathar.
Ah, my Tamid. What do you say?
I'm standing here in the Scalarian because today I want to revisit scribing, and I'm going to be looking at my favorite skills that I've found useful in PvE damage dealer builds. I've had enough time with the new system, and I've used it in enough builds to where I can finally make this video. The last scribing video I did was really about saving you some time when you were acquiring scripts by using one character to farm the scripts. Hopefully with this video I can narrow that search down to scripts that are going to be the most useful. The grimoire that I use more than any other is Traveling Knight. This is the new dual wield skill. I frequently use bleed damage as the focus script, but that can depend on a couple of things. For bleed damage to do much, there has to be other bleed damage in the build. This by itself won't really do anything. Also, this is a fairly expensive skill. Sometimes I just can't afford to spend more stamina in my rotation, and in that case I choose magic damage. Choosing magic damage allows me to take some pressure off my stamina pool. The damage type here isn't really as important as the signature script. It's the signature script that I'm really after. Most of the time I use Wayfarer's Mastery. Wayfarer's Mastery activates the Ruffian passive, increasing the damage of my dual wield attacks. I'm using this with a specific skill. I use this when Rapid Strikes is my spammable attack. When I use this once, right before I use Rapid Strikes, I can increase the damage of that attack substantially. Occasionally I've used Warrior's Opportunity here instead when I have a different spammable that does martial damage. The affix script that I use is almost always Berserk. With this I can get near 100% uptime on minor Berserk, increasing my damage by 5%. Another scribe skill I've used a lot is Elemental Explosion. This is another new weapon skill and it comes from the Destruction Staff skill line. This is an area damage skill that can also do damage over time. It has a 2-second cast time but does twice as much damage as a normal spammable attack. Unlike Traveling Knife, I've only used one variation of this skill. I like fire damage and fire damage over time, and oddly enough the affix script is Minor Brittle. Minor Brittle increases damage by 10%, and it used to be that you could only get this by using a Frost Staff. It's kind of funny that now I can get it with a fire-based attack. The only reason I've used Fiery Explosion in builds so far is to get Minor Brittle. The 10% increase in damage is hard to ignore, but the 2-second cast time can be a deal breaker. Whether or not this works in a build is a matter of trial and error.
Ulfsild would be proud of you, I think. She and I never truly saw eye to eye. How could we, when she was so much smaller than I am?
Really? Immortal, mystical dragon, and you make a bad dad joke? Wow. Scribing brings 2 new skills to the Soul Magic skill line.
My ears are open to you, Tamid.
The first skill is Soul Burst. The version shown here is Sundering Burst, which does physical damage to enemies around me, damage over time, and gives me minor courage. Just like I did with Traveling Knife, I can change the damage type here to draw on one resource or the other. If I'm playing a sorcerer, either physical or shock damage can be good because they have a 5% bonus to both damage types. Dragon Knights favor fire and poison damage. Another consideration is how much a build might need Minor Breach. Sundering Burst will increase the uptime of Minor Breach because of the Sundered status effect. Sunder does instant damage and causes Minor Breach for 4 seconds, reducing my enemy's armor. But if a build already has high uptime on Minor Breach, picking a damage type other than physical might be better. I like Lingering Torment as the signature script and mostly use that. But if you're playing an Arcanist, you might want to consider the Class Mastery script that generates a Crux. Minor Courage is a good affix script because that increases my damage by 5%, and in small groups my odds of getting this from another player can be iffy, especially if I'm pugging it. The other new Soul Magic skill is Wield Soul. One of the nice things about these new Soul Magic skills is they can find use in a wide variety of builds. Because they're not tied to a specific weapon, their uses are almost limitless. On a stamina-based build I might try bleed damage like Bloody Soul shown here. Of course, like the other scribe skills, I can choose a different damage type. Because the cost of this new skill is low, I've used this as a spammable attack. This works particularly well on heavy attack builds because when I select damage over time, this will tick in between heavy attacks, adding in extra damage. But what I like most about Wield Soul is I can select Major Breach from my affix script. Now I have a spammable attack that will reduce my enemy's armor by 5,000 points, and I don't have to try to include that elsewhere in my build.
Already missing my fabulous tendrils? No wonder. Few who gaze upon it can resist my splendor for long. Float easy, and know I will always be here if you need me.
Yeah, float easy. Oh, brother. The last skill I want to talk about is Ulfsild's contingency. This new Mage's Guild skill can sometimes work in builds because you can get minor vulnerability this way. You can't get that from Soul Burst or Wield Soul. Unfortunately, I'm limited to the various magicka damage types with this skill. This is a good candidate for builds that maybe already have lots of physical damage and really don't need any more. Also, this will provide extra damage in magicka-based builds. This skill will boost my max magicka by 2%. That's because of the magicka controller passive. Ulfsild's contingency has a quirk that you may not like. It won't activate after casting until another skill is used. I can see that being handy in PvP when I'm trying to line up burst damage. In PvE, it has the benefit of allowing me to pre-cast the skill before the fight has begun. I just have to make sure I'm close enough to my enemy when I use my next skill. I want to point out that I have Lingering Torment as my signature script here, and 9 out of 10 times that seems to get the best results. Well, that's all I have for you today. When I look back at the scribe skills that made it into the final version of my builds, these were the ones, or slight variations of them. Now, I'm not going to say that the other scribing skills aren't useful, but they're going to be a lot more situational. For instance, I've used the Vault skill to help me keep my distance from a boss that would otherwise one-shot me. And of course, PvP is basically a whole different game, and I didn't address those uses here. Alright, thanks for watching, have a great day and enjoy your adventures in Tamriel.
When I look back on our quest for justice together, when I see all that you've accomplished, I can't help but be impressed in spite of myself. Well done, mortal. Very well done.
You know the one thing I wanted to be able to accomplish more than anything? I wanted to be able to climb up on top of this damn rock, but I can't. Oh well.